Territoriality, a characteristic of penal or criminal law. The second characteristic of penal law is territoriality. Territoriality means that, or as a rule, penal laws of the Philippines are enforceable only within its territory. The territory of the country is not limited only to the land where its sovereignty resides, but includes also its maritime and interior waters, as well as its atmosphere. For example, in the crime of bigamy, if you contracted a second or subsequent marriage in another country, you will not be prosecuted for the crime of bigamy in the Philippines by virtue of the principle of territoriality. However, if you return to the Philippines with your second spouse and you live together as husband and wife, the aggrieved spouse may then file a criminal complaint for concubinage or adultery, as the case may be, against both of you, since your illegal cohabitation is committed within our country's territory. How to distinguish generality from territoriality? The rules are the following. If the accused attacks the jurisdiction of the court because of the unique characteristics of his person, for example, he is a foreigner, military, ambassador, or president, the applicable principle is generality. On the other hand, if the accused attacks the jurisdiction of the court due to the unique characteristics of the place where the crime was committed, for example, the crime was committed in a foreign vessel, in an embassy, or in the high seas, the applicable principle is territoriality. The exception to the rule, or the rule on extraterritoriality. Circumstances where Philippine penal laws are applicable even outside the territory are as follows. 1. Those who commit an offense while on a Philippine ship or airship. In order for this exemption to apply, the following requisites must be present. First, the ship or airship must not be within the territorial jurisdiction of another country. It is in the Philippine waters or in the high seas. Second, the ship or airship must be registered in the Philippines under Philippine laws. Warship Rule. A warship of another country, even though docked in the Philippines, is considered an extension of the territory of its respective country. This also applies to embassies. Rules on jurisdiction over merchant vessels. French Rule. Crimes committed aboard a foreign merchant vessels should not be prosecuted in the courts of the country within whose territorial jurisdiction they were committed, unless their commission affects the peace and security of the territory. English Rule recognizes that the host country has jurisdiction over crimes committed on board the vessel unless they involve the internal management of the vessel. The Philippines adheres to English Rule. Flag State Rule. It states that the Philippines has jurisdiction over hijacking of PAL airplane in an American territory, since it is registered in the Philippines, but not over murder committed in vessel registered in Panama while on high seas, although it is owned by a Filipino. Rule on foreign merchant vessels that are in possession of dangerous drugs. When the foreign merchant vessel is in transit, possession of dangerous drugs is not punishable, but the use of the same is punishable. When the foreign merchant vessel is not in transit, mere possession of dangerous drugs is punishable. International theories on aerial jurisdiction. Free zone theory. The atmosphere over the country is free and not subject to the jurisdiction of the subjacent state, except for the protection of its national security and public order. Relative theory. The subjacent state exercises jurisdiction over the atmosphere only to the extent that it can effectively exercise control thereof. Absolute theory. The subjacent state has complete jurisdiction over the atmosphere above it, subject only to the innocent passage by aircraft of foreign country. The Philippines adopts the absolute theory. Number 2 exception. those who should forge or counterfeit any coin or currency note or obligations and securities issued by the Philippine government. Under the protective principle, the court has jurisdiction over forgery of Philippine money committed in Taiwan, whether by a Filipino or an alien, but not forgery of US dollars committed therein. What is the meaning of forgery? Forgery is committed by giving to a treasury or banknote or any instrument payable to bearer or to order the appearance of a true genuine document, or by erasing, substituting, counterfeiting, or altering by any means the figures, letters, words, or sign contained therein. Note that the obligations and securities of the GSIS, SSS, and Land Bank are not of the government because they have separate chapters. Number 3, exception. Those who should be liable for acts connected with the introduction into the country of the obligations and securities stated in number 2. Those who introduce the counterfeit items are criminally liable, even if they are not the ones who counterfeited the obligations and securities. On the other hand, those who counterfeited the items are criminally liable, even if they did not introduce the counterfeit items. Number 4, exception. Those who, while being public officers or employees, should commit an offense in the exercise of their function. The functions contemplated are those which are, under the law, to be performed by the public officer in the foreign service of the Philippine government in a foreign country. However, the revised Penal Code governs if the crime was committed within the Philippine Embassy or within the embassy grounds in a foreign country. This is because embassy grounds are considered extension of sovereignty. Number 5, exception. Those who should commit any of the crimes against national security and the law of nations. The following are crimes against national security: treason, conspiracy and proposal to commit treason, espionage, inciting to war and giving motives for reprisals, violation of neutrality, correspondence with hostile country, and flight to enemy's country. While crimes against law of nations are piracy and mutiny in the high seas. Under the universal principle, the court has jurisdiction over piracy committed on high seas for being a universal crime, but not over murder qualified by the circumstances of taking advantage of the calamity brought about by piracy on high seas. For our next video, we will be discussing the third characteristic of penal law. Subscribe to our channel for more updates. Just comment your questions if there's any, and we will try to answer them. Thank you.